Hi, everybody. Today I've introducing to you Cassidy. Cassidy and I are calling between Colorado and Melbourne, respectively. Cassidy is a special ed teacher who I met in Brussels. I was sharply reminded some 14 years ago, Brussels, Belgium. In that time, Cassidy was a brand spanking new teacher, eager to learn, and plonked right in the middle of a busy European centre. And I had the privilege of knowing her as a fledgling teacher, but I introduced her to you today. 14 years on, living a fantastic life, enjoying her career. She's worked her way through into special education and spends a lot of time in the evaluation of children and their how they qualify for services in her area. So welcome, Cassidy. Thank you for being
You.
here.
My pleasure to be here.
14 years. It's like no time and tons of time.
Isn't that amazing how it feels like no time has passed?
So, Cass, I'm not sure how many people are necessarily familiar with your how the recruitment of interns or as in graduates. So, moving from undergraduate studies into the workforce. It's not a question I'd planned to ask you, but it may be a great opportunity as teachers' worlds open up to look at the possibilities for international experience, certainly well, at any point of their career. So, how did you get onto your intern program that led you to ISB?
I think it's like you said, it's such a great opportunity. It wasn't something that I anticipated for myself. I was really a lot of a homebody. I liked where I lived. I went to college only, an hour and a half from my home. So it was through a professor that I had at Luther College. And he had taught internationally. He had been a principal at various international schools and had this connection to some of the staff and people at the ISB or the International School of Brussels. And so, um, I actually remember the moment that I got the email from him saying, I think you'd be a really good candidate. You should interview for this intern position at the school. And it just kind of hit me like, I have to do this. I have to try it. And, you know, I know we've talked about it's that experience that's changed my life. It was just a year, but you connect with people and you grow so much in your travels and in just immersing yourself in a different culture and different language. So really invaluable experience.
So that year as an intern had you in a range of year levels, pretty much wherever people wanted you to a certain extent. Is that how you found it
Yeah, I
around the campus? Yeah.
we did get a good feel for a variety of ages. I was primarily with a 3-year-old preschool classroom where I learned a tremendous amount, even if it was just patience. um, but yeah, we had the experience to kind of work with after school programs, and we worked in, days where the preschoolers weren't there. We got an opportunity to work with school age children as well. So wide variety.
I love that. So you mentioned that you studied at Luther College, and that's in Minnesota. That's right.
Actually, Iowa, so just south of
Beg your
Minnesota.
pardon. Sorry, Iowa. Yeah.
No
And
worries.
what actually brought you to teaching when you were, had career choices at high school, and what led you into a teaching path?
It was just something that was kind of always with me. I loved school growing up. I had wonderful teachers. I think that's maybe an experience for a lot of people who, you know, they have those great teachers that they remember being really warm and learning a lot from. I would sit in my room and play school for hours and give my stuffed animals and my dolls spelling tests. So it was just something that I kind of grew up. It was like a natural thing, like, oh yeah, I'll be a teacher. And the more I thought about it too, like I it was a way that I could continue to learn. I'm just kind of one of those lifelong learners and wanted to work in a career where I would always have that opportunity to grow and learn new things. So it was a good fit for me.
From having get to know you, it was many years ago, but your rapport with children is very easy. It's very gentle. Oh, hello. Hello, doggies. Oh, it's life. We said it would be candid, didn't we? We wanted to keep this real. Your teaching experience between an intern and now in special ed, you would have spent time in the mainstream setting as well?
Yes. So again, my career has taken a few different paths. I worked for several years in a general ed, what we would consider typical preschool classroom, and then I had an opportunity to do a long-term sub position in a kindergarten classroom, and that's kind of where my interest in special education was sparked. I got to work with different types of learners, and one student in particular who was having a lot of behavioral challenges that year. And so that's when kind of went on the special education path.
Amazing. We talked a little before about the COVID specific challenges, and for people that don't know you, you've had a cross country move, so it meant a new school, a new environment and district and things. But what other kind of challenges do you think you've really blossomed from in your career so far?
I think just kind of having to the self-doubt sometimes and feeling as if I wasn't prepared for certain situations. Um, in my last 7 years, I was within a classroom, so I would co-teach with a general education teacher, and then I was kind of that special ed expertise and supporting children. And I was faced with a lot of different students that had behavioral challenges, and I really doubted my ability to, impact them and impact their learning, impact their um, the quality of their days, and felt kind of struggled with having that support. So I think, especially in the United States, our resources are somewhat limited, and I think felt that I was expected to not just teach kids, but to be the nurse, to be the therapist, to kind of cure all of the ills. So taking that on and kind of internalizing that it was my role was a little bit of a challenge.
That's incredible. You're just wrapping it up in a summary, and I'm sure there was so much emotionally and physically invested in that. How do you feel that you overcame some of those challenges?
I, really, it came down to just focusing on relationships. I think that's been a key kind of theme as I've grown into my teaching, that initially you're so concerned about the academics and are they going to learn their letters, are they going to know their numbers, can they count to 20 by the time they're in kindergarten, and more and more realize that if I didn't have a quality relationship with my students, they weren't going to get that learning anyway, and that I really had to focus on some of those social, emotional, and just those internal aspects before I could move on to teaching the academic aspects.
Mm-hmm. Did that take the form of you having a mentor or a coach, or is it the collaborative team teaching? Was it one or more of those things?
I think we had, throughout my teaching and professional development, there was, we would start the year with that training, and we would have different the school psychologists come and talk about that, and it was always really that's what I'm looking for. It felt good to hear that message and to but then I would feel like the school year would get started and it was like, okay, now we need to know, are you making progress and are the children learning? Um, but I would always kind of go back to that. So I think there was, an overarching kind of, people wanted you to focus on that, but also it sometimes then got lost. And so for me, it's kind of a personal thing to have to reconnect to that. And just knowing like I've worked on kind of my own internal struggles and anxieties and wanting to, be more calm, but that was kind of the way that I had to approach a lot of my students in the classroom and bring in some of the strategies that I was using to kind of help center myself into centering the classroom and centering my students.
I love that. I love that. I've mentioned this before. I feel that teaching is really a vocation. It's not a career, and it has this incredible way of intercepting your whole life. But what's bad about that? If you want to make yourself a better person, when you're a better person, you feel like a better teacher. And what I hear you saying is that the internal drive to be better for you, just to be better available for your students and to be a better teacher or to be a consistently improving teacher is to focus on the relationships and the feedback that you're getting every day. So especially from students.
Yeah, I think there was one training in particular that really resonated, and it was, basically like if the teacher themselves is escalated and anxious and bringing all this kind of baggage to the class, then it's that's going to really reflect on what the room feels like and the energy that the students feel. So that really hit me that first kind of got to work on myself and being that model, and that that co-regulation. I've been really interested in that, kind of have to work together in regulating yourself before the children can stay regulated as well.
Now that's interesting because that should be a term that's as frequently heard as we talk a lot about self-regulation, but not so much co-regulation. I think I'm going to pinch that from you. I'm going to put that in my vernacular.
Yeah, I think it's important for parents too. I work a lot with parents, and it's like, oh, they expect kids to be able to regulate on their own. And I think knowing that, it's something that's really modeled. Like a lot of adults have a hard time regulating their emotions and staying calm in various situations.
Yeah.
So, it can kind of happen jointly. It doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other, but you can kind of work on it together.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to take you back to some of your earlier days just for a moment, your earlier experiences with starting out and teaching, when you got your first classroom and then they close the door and it's like, okay, it's you and the class now. And you mentioned that, the start of the year was often always that good time to get pepped up and feel supported and held and ready to go. Is there something that you wished you'd had as a young teacher in your first experiences that would have made it easier for you, or something that just on reflection now you think might be easy? Because I'm sure you've had time where you've had pre-service teachers come under your wing and learn from you. So the question again was which support you would have wanted for yourself or for teachers that you see coming into the profession?
I think just I wish I had been a little more confident, and there's always kind of that self-doubt, and we tend to take things personally. And I think that kind of knowing that maybe like everybody's doing that. I had taken another course that, kind of was talking about that, each person kind of is questioning themselves, and if you kind of think about that and come to different interactions with a place of kind of that vulnerability, and being a little bit more vulnerable and opening up about that, like I feel like I might be failing at this, I'm not, these are the things that I'm doing well, and focusing on some of those, but being able to talk to somebody about like, okay, I feel like I'm failing at this, but, and having someone else say that too, and not that like misery loves company, which sometimes is true, but, just knowing that we're all kind of doubtful, and that the best way to kind of grow is to kind of reveal those doubts and insecurities, and be able to grow from them by talking about it.
I love that, because you probably know as well as I do, teachers can be very proud and very, maybe even our own worst enemy sometime, if you feel that you have to know, or the expectation you set for yourself is really, really high, and you're actually making it harder for yourself.
Right.
Ah, wow. I'm going to change the tone a little bit,
Sure.
and I'm pretty sure there's going to be plenty of things you could choose from. But do you have a funny story that stays with you, or has stayed with you, in your time working with children?
I thought about this one, and the one that always comes to mind first is, a day where, so again, I'm supporting, some special education students that are getting special education, within a general ed classroom. So it's usually about 15 kids who are typically developing, and 5 or 6 that, need that support. So this particular day, I had been, it was the end of the day, and I had two little fellows in my class that liked to team up and liked to kind of feed off of each other, and one would get an idea and the other one would, join right along. So we were out at their cubbies, their coat hooks, and we were getting ready, and sure enough, the one kind of got that glint in his eye, like, let's do something.
I already have a bad feeling about this.
And off they go down the hall. So they're running from Miss Cassidy. So, I go, and one thing I've learned is not to really chase children, because that makes it really fun. So you try to pretend like, oh, I'm just, walking down the hall, and so I catch up to them, and they go into the boys' bathroom, and, this is an early childhood center, so of course um, it's all for younger children. And so I could hear them. They had gone in and they were hiding in a bathroom stall together. And they were just snickering and laughing about, when's Miss Cassidy going to find us? And, like, let's be really quiet. So I think I can outsmart them, right? I'm more clever than these 4-year-olds. So I go into the stall next to them, and I get up on the toilet.
Oh.
And I'm trying to hide, and I'm like, I'll hide and stand on the toilet seat so they can't see me, and I'll hide until they come out. That didn't work. They were not coming out. They were just continuing to laugh and giggle about how fun it was to hide from Miss Cassidy. So I ended up having to get down, crawl under the bathroom stall, and help them out. Mind you, the boys' bathroom isn't the place you really want to,
No.
get down on the floor.
Oh man. Oh, the things that to be a fly on the wall are the things that we do every day, that we just, it's just par for the course. It's not like working in a bank, that's for sure.
Right.
Oh, I love it. So, thinking about that, you did already give us a little hint. Don't chase. Don't chase your younger students, and let them maybe think that they're coming away with something. They've come off with the plan that they intended. But would you have a final piece of advice for teachers at any stage of their career, whether it's starting, whether it's in these crazy times right now, but what would your best advice be for a teacher?
You have to have a sense of humor about some things. I'm glad you asked that question about, share a funny story, because, like you said, the stories we have, like, there's no other occupation that can relate to, the things that sometimes we experience. I think another thing is to kind of just think outside the box, you know. One of the things I love about teaching in special education is that it really forces me to be creative and to think outside the box. So, you know, that situation I was my you have to think so quickly, like what am I gonna do and how am I gonna make sure they're safe, but yet that um and in that situation, you know, it maybe it wasn't the right one, but at the end of the day, I, you know, could laugh at myself. The kids were safe, and that was also something that I had a supervisor that always remind us, you know, did everybody go home without you know, scratches and bruises? Sometimes they did, but you know, did everybody go home safely? And that day, at least, you know, yes, they did. Maybe I was a little bit stressed, and maybe they ran from me, but you know, in the big picture is, um,
Yeah.
was everyone safe? Did everybody?
Would it be safe to say that every day is a different day and you learn to grow as a person with these things that come at you so quickly?
Yes, yeah. You really learn to be flexible. But and you learn, you know, today was not great, and I learned from that. Tomorrow, you know, maybe a new situation will come, but I'll face that too, and uh, it always works out.
You'll do it all again the next day and the next day.
Exactly.
Cassidy, I want to thank you once again for your valuable time and your wonderful insight. The children and faculty you work with are so lucky to have you on their team. And I've absolutely loved chatting to you. It's been a long time, but then not really, because the power of our connection was at a very special time in both of our careers, and it stays with you, I think. So I want to thank you again for bringing your beautiful, joyful, playful style to your students and your learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe.
Just want to pause.